The EMA, as you might imagine, is extremely delighted to be able to convene this very unique forum. We believe the first of its kind in Trinidad and Tobago. It has been a really huge undertaking, but the EMA believes that it is a priority given global trends with respect to green business and the development of a green economy. The response to this forum has really been tremendous. I think the filled room today emphasizes that. And to share with you that we were really oversubscribed shortly after the forum was announced. We would have had, if we had space, this meeting would have been at least twice the size that it is currently. And it sends a signal that there is a keen interest in the area of green business, and the EMA then, on the next occasion, will ensure that the facilities can cater for the numbers of you who have expressed interest. We are trying to use other mechanisms, of course, of ensuring that the information gets out in terms of a link through some of the television stations and utilizing the other means of broadcast. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank our line minister, Dr. Rudal Munilal, who actually came up with the idea of having this Green Business Forum. Shortly after he assumed office as Minister of Housing and the Environment, we were having one of our first discussions and raising the issue of the environment in the context of Trinidad and Tobago and how we can really make some impact in terms of dealing with the environmental issues. The Minister made the point that one of the ways to do it really was to bring together the productive sectors, the commercial sector, together with the environment. And therefore, one of the mechanisms which I think is now working globally in terms of ensuring that the issues of the environment are considered in terms of decision making. So I wish to thank the Minister for initiating this particular forum. And of course, we know that this is a springboard for what is to come eventually in terms of maybe a realignment in terms of how we do business in Trinidad and Tobago to take into consideration the issues of the environment. Now, one of the questions that I've been asked, and I've done some interviews in the context of promoting the forum, not that it required a great deal of promotion, as I said, it was put on the website and everyone wished to participate. One of the questions which have been asked is, what is green business? And, I think a very fair question. It has been around in terms of the philosophy for quite some time, and we have seen a variety of applications in terms of the concept. I think if you did a search, you would come across one of the basic principles of green business, which is a reference to the triple bottom line accounting, as it is quoted, which is, of course, making reference not only to the issue of profit, which many businesses are concerned about, and some of them only concerned about, but also making reference to the issue of social responsibility and environmental management. And a business that is operating, taking those three issues into consideration, and indeed successfully so, not only taking it into consideration, but successfully so, might be a good example of a good business, of a green business, as well as a good business. I think it is important to recognize as well that there are some obvious businesses which would be green. For example, businesses which would be engaged in recycling programs, and we have some of those businesses in Trinidad, as well as a business which would be involved, for example, in the issue of renewable energies. Those are clearly green businesses. But it doesn't stop there. Certainly it can be extended to the traditional type of business where those other two issues, other than profit, are being taken into consideration, issues related to social responsibility and environmental management. Now, I think many of you, of course, would be aware of the term greenwashing. And greenwashing is something which I think is, again, very common globally, certainly gained in prominence after the Earth Summit was held, and there was a requirement that we change the way in terms of how we operated, and many businesses were claiming to be green without actually being green. And this is where the term greenwashing actually came about. In a Caribbean context, I think maybe a good example of that would be the hotel sector, where in some cases introduced measures. I mean, you would recall, of course, I mean, all of you would have been in a hotel room at one time or the other. Signage in a hotel room with regards to, utilizing your towels, etc. And clearly to those who are environmentally conscious, this would appear something which should be done. I mean, the less towels you wash, the less detergent you utilize, and therefore the less enrichment in terms of water going into waterways, and something that we're all concerned about. But it appeared in many cases that it stopped at that point. And, I think the interpretation, if you really looked at it, was really to increase or improve the bottom line, which was making money. And these facilities didn't go beyond that point to really put in place measures which were looking in a serious way at environmental issues. So, I think it is important to recognize that. But I think we have moved away from that, as the principle of green business has gained in prominence. And as we have recognized the real need to address it in a serious way, I think we have shifted away. And certainly with the advent of new technology in terms of dealing with business in the context of environment, we are now taking it in a more serious fashion. And the intent of this particular forum is to promote those opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago and promote an opportunity, of course, for discussion. Now, in the context of this particular forum and putting it together and, of course, utilizing the directive and idea of the Minister of Housing and the Environment, how do we put together this forum so that it makes good sense? It's not another talk shop. And, of course, I think many of us have been involved in many, many meetings where it's great, we come together, we have a good discussion, and then it stops at that point. Certainly, the EMA reflected as to, what would be a successful meeting going forward, using this really as a catalyst, if you will, for further action. What we did was that we looked at what would be the critical components of a vibrant green business sector and came up with some, I think, some expected components. Clearly, you would require a policy framework in which the business sector would operate in terms of the issue of green business. We would need the appropriate legislation because very often the policy is there, but we don't have the legislative framework to promote the actual issue, and in this particular case, the issue of green business. We would require business ideas because clearly if you have these things in place and you don't have the right ideas, it doesn't go anywhere. We would require economic and non-economic incentives. We would require marketing, investors, a key component in terms of the issue of promoting business. We would require suppliers and we would require consumers. All these critical in terms of issue of ensuring that a notion of green business would succeed. And so we carefully examined then who would be the critical players in the specific context of our needs in Trinidad and Tobago in determining the path for a greener economy. And this revealed, again, some obvious partners. Government clearly had to be driving the process. The private sector has to be involved, issue of business. The financial sector, I think, has been one of the partners who have been left out in jurisdictions where the issue of green business really would not have succeeded in terms of a financial mechanism for supporting the promotion of green business. And we saw these as the cross-cutting entities who had to be involved in sustaining green business. Looking at the critical sectors for a green intervention, we felt clearly the energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago is one of the critical sectors. The tourism sector, I think, provides maybe the first and greatest opportunity in terms of the issue of greening business, ecotourism being maybe a really frontline opportunity in Trinidad and Tobago, which I do not think we have maximized upon. And again, the manufacturing sector, which really requires some focus with regards to the intervention of going green. So the strategy was to bring all these players together and not just talk about the ideas with the intent to move forward, but really to look at how we can get together the ideas in terms of formulating real policy and plans for legislative and other incentives to encourage the proliferation of green business in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, it is clear, I think, that the intent to consider green business as a viable option for Trinidad and Tobago, I think it is clear that it is a priority of the current administration. The sustainable development of the economy and people of this country is the overarching theme in their plans, and the participation of the Honourable Prime Minister, who we'll be expecting a little later on this morning, in this particular forum, I believe solidifies this priority. We are also very pleased to have from government speaking today Minister Munilal, whose ministry will no doubt provide the vision for effective green growth, with EMA coordinating the process along with the respective agencies and divisions. Minister Caroline Sipasad-Bachin is expected as well today, to offer ways in which Trinidad and Tobago can develop a viable, alternative and renewable energy sector, despite our current $2 billion fuel subsidy arrangement and the relatively cheap fossil fuel energy available to us. And of course, we recognize that that is a blessing in many ways. I mean, the economy in Trinidad and Tobago is being driven by the fact that we have an abundant supply of fossil fuel energy. I think we also recognize that it is finite, it's not going to last forever, and therefore we need to start putting in place other ways of dealing with the issue of demand for energy. Energy drives business, and I think we all recognize that. The issue with regards to the advent of energy and how we will be moving forward with that, in recognition that energy in Trinidad and Tobago costs on average about 4 US cents per kilowatt hour, compared to about 25 cents in Barbados, about 21 cents in Jamaica. How do we introduce the notion of renewable energy into a national grid where the cost of energy is so cheap? And clearly it would require government policy and maybe even legislation. We expect that Minister Mary King will also be with us today to share with us how the process of incorporating the triple bottom line that I mentioned earlier on can be facilitated by proper planning and appropriate economic and social restructuring. We also have a macro-physical specialist from the Ministry of Finance to shed some light on how financial incentives can be applied to support green growth. Clearly, it is a critical component, and I don't think we will succeed if we do not have the support of the financial sector. Also represented at the forum are experts, professionals, and practitioners from the tourism, manufacturing, energy, banking, construction, and already established green sector, because we do have a green sector in Trinidad and Tobago, who will outline what has already been done to promote greening of their areas of operation and what is needed to continue on a national level. We'll be hearing new and innovative ideas with respect to developing a photovoltaic cell industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And I had the privilege of actually listening in to this presentation by Mr. Robert Tamyuk at a recent forum in Brussels, where this idea was presented to investors in terms of a really feasible investment opportunity in Trinidad and Tobago to develop this industry here, tapping into the cheap and abundant supply of energy, but also into other resources which are available in nearby Guyana in terms of high-grade silica. So really an industry which I would love to see happen here in Trinidad as we look for other uses of the electricity which will be generated in the Union Industrial Estate at TGU. The forum will also showcase what is being done internationally by the banking sector to encourage green growth. For example, the Turkish bank, the Turk Economy Bank, officially launched its Green Banking Initiative on World Environment Day of 2009, where 50 million euros are to be loaned for environment-related investments, focused investments on environmentally related projects. The Royal Bank of Canada representative will be talking about the suite of environmental risk management policies designed to identify, assess, and mitigate the environmental and social risk associated with financing clients. Later today, I will also be sharing with you the role of the EMA as we view it that the EMA will play and continue to play in supporting green business in the country. There will be, therefore, as you would imagine, a wealth of information being shared, and we really would like to encourage you to participate in a forthright way. I would like to share with you as well that the EMA will be continuing its inaugural Green Lifestyle Show, which was launched last year, and another event which attracted many individuals and groups who were very, very interested in participating and showing their wares, the Green Lifestyle Show. And we're happy to recognize that this is having some spin-off effects in terms of other agencies who are involved in promoting green business. You know, that Green Expo is going to be held in San Fernando sometime, I believe, in April, which I would encourage you to participate as well, so that we are sharing with the community in Trinidad and Tobago the opportunities that exist with regards to green business. So ladies and gentlemen, as I close, I would once again like to welcome you this morning and to thank you for supporting this very critical initiative in the developmental evolution of Trinidad and Tobago, and I am terming it evolution of Trinidad and Tobago. I encourage you to ask questions, to share ideas, and to work with us to build the momentum of this exciting area of sustainable development. I remind you that the task before us remains not only what happens here during the next 2 days, but how we translate our discussions and the ideas formulated into real implementable plans and policies for a greener Trinidad and Tobago economy. I thank you very much.